going to just read a quote from Edward Mendell House and what he had to say in a private meeting with Woodrow Wilson, president between 1913 and 1921, from the private papers of Woodrow Wilson. Quote, "Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people, and that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register or suffer not being able to work and earn a living. They will be our chattel, and we will hold the security interest over them forever by operation of law merchant under the scheme of secured transactions. Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly delivered the bills of lading to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent, forever to remain economic slaves through taxation secured by their pledges. They will be stripped of their rights and given commercial value designated to keep us a profit that will be none the wiser. For not one man in a million could ever figure out our plans, and if by accident one or two would figure it out, we have in our arsenal plausible deniability. After all, this is the only logical way to fund government, by floating liens and debt to the registrants in the form of benefits and pledges. This will inevitably reap us huge profits beyond our wildest of expectations and leave every American a contributor to this fraud, which we will call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will insure us for any loss we may incur, and in this manner, every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly. The people will become helpless without any hope for their redemption, and we will employ the high office of the President as our dummy corporation to foment this plot against America. Having established plausible deniability, even if people become enlightened that they had a remedy and pursued it, the attorneys, judges, and legislators could claim that they did not understand the people's claims, especially if the technical requirements for achieving it were not followed pursuant to statutory requirements, requiring the public schools to teach civics, government, and history classes out of federally approved, politically correct textbooks written by the publishing houses owned by the owners of the Federal Reserve would assure that the people would not discover the remedy for a long time, if ever. I would recommend that everyone read Fruit from a Poisonous Tree by Melvin Stamper, M-E-L-V-I-N, Stamper, S-T-A-M-P-E-R. That is Fruit from a Poisonous Tree. This is out of Chapter 2 of Fruit from a Poisonous Tree.
If you look beyond the veil, that is, if you look past this bullshit, the illusion, if you look past the treachery of what we've become, the human race, our purpose, our very lives, our very livelihoods, and you ask yourself, I've always asked myself this from day one, as long as I can remember, this philosophical question: why am I here? And not only that, what am I doing here? What is my purpose on this planet, right? Am I born here randomly? Am I just here to just go to school, grow up, go through this whole shit, I call the shitstem, the system. Go through this life and get yourself a job, or even have a career, have a family, a nice job, a nice car, the pool in the backyards, the dogs, the whole thing. The so-called American dream that we've been fed. Give me your young, your sick, your, you know, give me all your young, your sick, your old, right? That's what it says on the Statue of Liberty. Speaking of liberty, Statue of Liberty, you ever wonder when people say, when they've trained us to believe that a group of so-called people, right, migrated from Europe in search of what? In search of freedom, in search of liberty, right? That's what we were told. That's what we were taught. That's what we were trained and indoctrinated to know and believe. That a group of pilgrims started this great society we have here. Pilgrims. And you think about it and you're like, wait a minute. Weren't you motherfucking pilgrims? Weren't you guys escaping religious persecution? Weren't you guys escaping taxation? Weren't your so-called forefathers, founding fathers, made it clear that in their whole constitution, their document, I remember reading in your history books, that's what you said, that's what you taught us. You said that you guys were escaping religious persecution and you were tired of giving everything you earned and you owned to the fucking king. So you decided to set voyage, you decided to set sail to a new place, a new land, new whatever, and you supposedly found these so-called United States here, right? And you landed on Plymouth Rock and all this other bullshit, which I'm not gonna get into because that's not really the point of the video. I'm just setting up what I really want to talk about, right? Prior to the whole debacle, so-called World War I, it's bullshit because the world has always been at war. There was never a time during the history of humanity where human beings were not at war with each other. So the idea that in 1914 that supposedly World War I, the very first World War, is pretty bullshit and lame because, let's face it, again, human beings from the beginning of their inception here on this planet, and even prior to, we're not going to get spiritual here, we're not going to talk about the cosmos, because humans were on other planets. If you guys didn't know that, I'm telling you right now, this is not the first place that we've incarnated into. Human beings have been born on other planets. Talk about Mars, which they blew up. That's why it's red. Mars was blown up. That's why Mars is the way it is. It's the war planet. They blew Mars up and they escaped Mars and they somehow followed the other children here, which is a whole other story. But human beings have always been at war. But let's just take them at face value of what they taught us about their history. Something very, very interesting took place prior to World War I. You guys can dig up old articles and look this up yourselves. The United States went broke, pretty much is what I'm trying to say. The United States got into some crazy deals. They allowed a handful of Freemasonic bastards, right? A handful of men. The Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the guys who started Chase with your slave money. Yeah, Chase Bank and Company, all these people, your oil, your Rockefellers, they all got their wealth from slavery. I'm sure you guys know this, but anyway. So these guys came up with this brilliant plan. They drained the U.S. economy, as always, because nothing is ever new. They ran the treasury into the ground. They pillaged it. They put their people in positions of power to make laws, of course, to make rules that would benefit them. And they sacked the treasury and they depleted it. The gold standard was no longer of value. So at the end of the day, the country went into a deep recession. It wasn't just in the 30s, but in the early 20th century, again in 1913. I'm gonna keep repeating this date because that's what you guys need to remember. I'm gonna put you guys on to game why Barack Hussein Obama became president. Obama, as I've mentioned in other videos, was the perfect puppet. The perfect puppet. The perfect distraction, the perfect disguise. I mean, he was trained by bankers. Obama was trained by oil men. And for him to accomplish what they needed him to accomplish, Obama, after leaving the White House, got himself a $300 million payment. Did you guys hear what I just said? Barack Obama, having sold out black people, not just black people get mad. Some black people are mad. I'm mad at that asshole for a lot of reasons, but I'm not mad at him for what he was given to do, what his task was, right? Under the disguise of, so-called change has come. There are not. It's not red states. It's not. What the fuck he said? In 2004, I sat in the living room and I listened to that bitch talk about. He made that speech when he stepped into the national spotlight. He gave that speech and he said, "There are not blue states or red states. There are not black Americans or white Americans. There are the United States of America." Some shit like that. Some Kool-Aid like that he spilled. And we all drink it. I drink it. I fell for it at the time. I'm not gonna lie. So Obama was the perfect weapon of the so-called elites, man, because at the time he was exactly what the United States and even the world needed. And I remember a few years back, KRS-One was doing a video, and KRS-One had it right. KRS said, we were at the brink of war. We were at the brink of all-out war because people were pissed. We got the short end of the stick. There was that whole thing in 2008, Bush and his cronies, 9/11, the Afghan war, the Iraq war, invading Iraq under the disguise of Iraq had something to do with 9/11 when we know Bush and his fucking puppet masters did 9/11. So what KRS was saying was that people were pretty much pissed. So we were going to have a revolution without a doubt. And when I say revolution, I mean a revolution in every sense of the word. That's what KRS said. And I wholeheartedly agreed with that. And that's what was going on. But guess what? Obama showed up. Barack Hussein Obama came through. And all of that shit was pretty much, brushed under the rug, as they say. Barack Hussein Obama came onto the scene, and all of a sudden, all the people who were angry, all the people who were disheartened, all the people who were disenfranchised and fed up with this so-called system, they just said, "Oh my God, here is our savior." Here's our savior. So Obama was Jesus, and that's the figure that he represented. That's why every picture he took, they put the sun symbol. They put a fucking sun symbol behind his head. Obama was the Messiah, and that's why the people who hated him also call him the Antichrist, because it's duality for these devil worshippers. These devil worshippers, these Satanists, they love They love the duality of things, you know. They'll give you the savior, and then they'll also give you the villain. They'll give you the hero, they'll give you the bad guy, they'll give you the light, they'll give you also the dark. So to some, well, to many, he was the savior, and to a lot, he was the antichrist. They gotta play both parts. Remember, I keep telling you guys that is the Luciferians on this side, and then there's the dark Satanists on this side. Okay, always remember that. Whenever they're trying to make you choose, they're trying to rip you apart in two different places. Just know that it's ill intent. It's not good intentions. Whenever they're trying to keep you torn, red and blue and all these other shit, conservative and liberal. Whenever they're trying to keep you torn, keep you fighting, that's when you know you have to stay neutral. I'm gonna keep pushing this this whole thing. That's one thing. If there's one thing to know, is that's what these demons do. They gotta keep you divided, y'all. That's just common sense. If you're not divided, then you're gonna be like, wait a minute, hey, you fucking with us. And they don't want you to know that. Obama was privately funded by rich, powerful bankers who were still operating from the 1913 Federal Reserves Act. What a lot of people don't know is this: when these bankers got together in 1913, it was pretty much to buy the United States. If I can recall what the article was called forget about the so-called Constitution. There is no Constitution. Since 1913, folks, there hasn't been a Constitution. That's why the country is in the shape that it is. That's why this country is so fucked up. They haven't been following the Constitution. Your politicians work for these people who have bought and paid for this country. That's why when you see a politician is elected, they're not making laws and enforcing policies to serve you, to better you, to help you. They're working on the behalf of the people who have secretly bought and paid for this country. And I mean, literally bought out this entire country. And when I say they bought the country, I mean they bought the country with everything in it. The jobs, the buildings, the wealth, the natural resources, the people. That's right, folks, the people. We have been bought and paid for since 1913 by a group of devil worshipping millionaires who are now billionaires, multi-billionaires, and possibly trillionaires. There was a group of people on the Titanic, and rumor has it that the Titanic was blatantly sunk. Sounds familiar? Remember flight TWA 800 shot in the air by some so-called military missile? That TWA flight 800, I think, what was it, 1990? No, it wasn't 90 because Bill Clinton was already president. Could have been 93. I'm not sure. I have to look that up again. But what these monsters do, what these devils do, is that if you go against them, if you disagree with them, if you're trying to go up against them, and if they know your whereabouts, if they know you're boarding a plane, if they know you're on some type of a cruise, a ship, whatever, they'll blow that shit up. They're known for that. JFK Jr., whose plane so-called disappeared within Hyannisport, where his family's from, when his plane suddenly took a dive. Remember, JFK Jr. was about to run for the Senate, and his mother, throughout Jackie Kennedy's life and John Kennedy Jr.'s upbringing, his mother forbade this man to run for political office because she knew who she was dealing with. She knew who these people are. And Jackie Kennedy specifically instructed her son not to get into politics. So when you see somebody's plane go down, when you see a plane goes missing, just like the Malaysian plane, these are people who they've put literally a target on their heads, right? So anyway, that's what happened with the Titanic. The Titanic didn't sink because the Titanic hit a motherfucking iceberg. Lies, man. Lies. Everything is a fucking lie. Why? Because we are in the devil's place. This is the devil's place. This is the devil's world. I don't know how much I have to stress this enough to you guys. Everything we've been told to this day, from the time we had the understanding to understand anything, they've been lying to us. So in essence, nothing is fucking real. That's why your birth certificate has a number, because you belong to somebody. We are cattle. Your social security number, your birth certificate, your driver's license, your marriage license, the property that you own, you don't own it because the number on it belongs to the bank, which belongs to the fuckers that bought us from day one. Do you get it now? Are you starting to see the bigger picture? Right? So 1913, the Federal Reserve Act is signed. But what they didn't tell you was, being that they bought and paid this country and they owned everything in it. Now here's the twist in this whole story. It gets better, because there is a thing in the contract which stated, because the country was so-called broke and people were not really producing whatever, so there was a clause within the contract of the 1913 purchase of the country, because that's what the Federal Reserve Act is. And if you look up the information, the Federal Reserve, it's not a U.S. entity. It's not under the president. That's why you see your boy Trump is always fighting with them. Lower the interest rate, lower the interest rate. Last time a president was fighting against the Fed, right? Which is what they call it, the FED, the Fed, the Federal Reserve. The last time a president went head to head, toe to toe with the Fed, he got his brain blown out in Dallas, Texas. Did you hear me? You heard what I said? The last time a president went to war with the Fed, he got his head, he got his whole fucking brain blown out publicly on national TV to send a message. You fuck with the Fed, we fuck with you. It was a contract for 100 years, from 1913 until 2013. And let me guess, who was the president in 2013? Because if you know what's going on, if you know the history behind what has been going on, you don't have to pay these motherfuckers taxes. If these so-called pilgrims, right, came here to escape taxation, so why now are we taxed up the wazoo? Why are we taxed to the point where we don't have anything? The contract was up in 2013, and in 2013 they put up this puppet so that he can uphold, so that he can renew the contract. Barack Hussein Obama was the perfect plant. Barack Hussein Obama was the perfect puppet to do these billionaires' bidding who have bought and paid for this country. So Obama's job was to come in and make sure that everything was going to be the same as always.
In the face of a common danger, the events of recent weeks may have helped to illuminate that challenge for some, but the dimensions of its threat have loomed large on the horizon for many years. Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the President. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.